Hi there, and welcome back. In today's video I want to show you how to model compound geometry. And what I mean by that, I'm going to show you in this picture here. So this sort of stuff here, basically these end connections that we have for these diagonals, where you have basically cutouts for slots to be, connected, bolts to be connected, basically these kind of cutouts here where we need to connect a rod and be able to thread that and so on and so forth. So this sort of geometry here can be really hard to model if you don't have the right approach. So I want to show you one approach that I use for this that works really well, and that uses the solid tools and basically positive, negative type geometry right in SketchUp. Alrighty, so I'll show you in a second how to model something like this here. Don't forget to check out my book Architectural Design with SketchUp. It covers all of these topics and makes for a great desk reference. You can find it where books are sold. There's also a link to it on my site SketchUpforDesign.com, together with lots of additional tutorials and news. Hi there, welcome back. So here's again the picture of these end connections. By the way, in case you're interested, these were made by a company called Cast Connex, and they've actually done a really great job to make a very elegant connector where you have, these kind of custom connections, but you have lots of those. So we got a ton of those in the building. They're all pretty much the same geometry, so it makes sense to cast them, of course. In any case, let's go ahead and model something like this. I'm actually not going to exactly do that geometry, but something close enough. And then, of course, you can adjust for your case as needed. All right. So what we're going to need, of course, is we're going to start off with the geometry right here. And I'm going to, well, let's assume this is maybe 8 diameter. Something like this here. Actually, for now, I'm going to turn hidden geometry off. Actually, we don't need the scale figure either. All right, so here we go. So there's my starting geometry. I'm going to scale the top. You all know about this little trick, right? And I'm going to do 0.8 right there. So in other words, select the top, go scale, and then if you tap Control, you can scale about the center. Then you get yourself some kind of a conical cylinder. So there's that part. And now we also need that end top here. So basically what we're going to do there is we're going to use an arc. And tangent right there. And then I'm going to create a half geometry, erase that, select the path, go with my follow me tool, click the face, and I got myself that part. Now, there's different ways, obviously, how you can do this. I used the push-pull tool, the scale tool, and the follow me tool to get there. You can actually just draw the entire cross-section as a half cross-section and then use the follow me tool to revolve it. You may need to clean up one way or another. Let me see if I need to. It looks pretty good, actually. As long as there's no face in between here, this can be a solid. And anyways, and then you start from there. Actually, didn't give myself enough space down here, so I'm going to just make this a little bigger just so that I have something to show right there. Obviously, again, use your own geometry and make it accurate. So same as always, I'm going to make this a group, and I would want to check whether it's a solid. So I'm going to go, actually I'm going to pin my tray right here. Now I can see that this is a solid group, and that's my starting point. This is really what I need, because now what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to add the negative geometry, all the cutouts, I'm going to model as positive geometry, overlap them, and then just subtract. That's the best and easiest way to do something like this here. Now, obviously, you need to get yourself the geometry correct, and there's different ways to do that, but I'll show you a few approaches that I take for that. Okay, so let's start with the center cutout. It's useful sometimes for something like this here to go into parallel projection and to go into top view. Then I also always like the X-ray mode, because then I can snap onto things like the origin and so on and so forth. So now I'm going to give myself a rectangle, and you can make it longer than you need because you're just going to cut it out. And I'm going to make it, like, say, 12 by, I'm going to have something like this here, right there. So now I'm just going to make it tall, just classic push-pull. Then I'm going to make group again, and I'm going to always double check, is this a solid group? And it is. Yay. All right, so let's go back into the top view. Another useful tool for something like this is the hide tool. So what I do is I actually put hide on a keyboard shortcut so that I can quickly hide things. So that's what happened here. I didn't delete it. And then always use your snaps to get things positioned properly. Now I've got it nicely centered right there. I don't have to go too precise, because ultimately now we're going to overlap it. All right, so I've got it down here now. If I move it up 1'6", then we would assume it's 6 inches from the bottom. That's actually a little short, so let's do another something like this here. So, again, use your actual geometry, but this is now how we're going to model this, and then we're just going to turn X-ray off so that it's clearer. We're going to have positive geometry right here, and then all the cutouts, and including tolerances, obviously. If you need a little bit of tolerance here, you're going to add to whatever the steel plate thickness is. So all of that's going to be a negative geometry that's going to be cut out from over there. Okay, so there's that. You could start cutting things if you want to, or you can now again keep modeling. And I'm going to go into my front view. Again, I'm in parallel projection because it makes life a little easier. Now I'm going to hide this guy again. I'm going to give myself the circle that I need. Let's say it's a 2-inch extrusion. And let's give it a thickness. And again, that part doesn't matter as much. Right there. Back to front view. And then you go up to wherever you need to be. And actually, that is not where I need my other guy back, right here. There. So maybe this should be centered on that point. And this is where I can now move perfectly on the blue axis, hold my shift key so that I'm constrained to that axis. And now I can perfectly place that piece centered on there without actually having it snap to any of the other geometry where I don't want it. This is a good time to switch over to side view, and you just push this through. Again, it doesn't matter how far, as long as it overlaps enough, and then we're pretty good right there. So you see what we're doing here, of course. Just using classic engineering views to basically align things, and then overlapping enough all of our solids. And I didn't check here, but this is also a solid group, and so is of course everything else, so that I can then just use my solid tools to subtract one from the other. Okay, so there's one more thing that I want to do here, and I'm going to do this Let's see if this works. I lost my view right here. Let's do 3 inches right there. Yeah, that looks about right. And then I'm going to push this out by, let's say, 2. And I'm going to flare the end face out. So I'm going to select the end face here, and then go into my scale tool, which I am in already. Then I'm going to tap Control so that I scale about the center. And then you can, either pick it or use scale factor. I'm going to say 1.5 as my scale factor. And then I have this flared end bit right there. Now, same as always, I'm going to make this a group. There's one right there. And now I just have to place that. And there's a good chance that you will want to place this relative to this vertical plate here. So I'm just going to go in a side view. I'm going to move it. I'm going to constrain my movement along this axis with the Shift key. And I'm going to place it right there. And then I'm going to make another copy right there. Scale it to -1 or use the flip tool, whichever way you want to do it. That one is going to be placed right there. And now, of course, that's not where this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be somewhere out here. So let's say maybe I want this to be at somewhere there. Again, this is part of your design now. You're gonna decide where you want to place this. Oops. Of course, that got messed up badly. Let me fix that for a second. There we go. Again, oopsie daisy, right there. All right, and we are good. Okay, so now everything's in place for this part here. So I'm gonna have my, wait, let me turn X-ray off. I'm gonna have my positive space element. I've got my plate that I'm gonna cut out. I've got these guys, which is the bolt hole, and I've got, some kind of a recess happening right there. Okay, so now I can go ahead and start subtracting. And this is where I'm going to use my solid tools, the ones that are built into Pro version of SketchUp. You can use the toolbar, you can use this here. Yeah, any which way will work. In this case here, we want to subtract our negative objects from the positive objects. And so we're just going to use subtract. Some other construction applications like mortise tenon type joints, you will want to use trim, but I'm going to just use subtract. And then you click one, and then you click the other, and then you subtract it one from the other. Now you got to be careful, because right now, as you can see on my cursor, you're in that second part, so I always click somewhere else, and then say one from there, there from there, and there from there. Yeah, that's about it. Alrighty, so you get the point. What I was doing here. This gives you clear and clean geometry. You very nicely scallop things out. You can work with the geometry I have. You don't have to try to hit edges that are really hard to get. And then actually now, if I turn on my hidden geometry, you'll see how reasonably clean the whole thing ended up right here. All right, so this shows you the technique. Ultimately then, of course, I would do the same, maybe a few cylinders down here for these bolt recesses. And then I'm good to go with this. There's a bit of a scale thing happening in SketchUp. So if this is a tiny part and you need to use the same approach, then it helps to scale things up first to a reasonable scale, several feet, meter, whatever, and then do the solid tools operations to subtract, and then you can always scale it back down. There's some kind of a numerical precision thing. If everything is too small, these kind of cuts don't end up perfectly. All right, so there's that. And we've got ourselves something nice. Okay, as a final step, you could now also round out these edges. Basically, wherever you have sharp edges, you most probably for fabrication will want to round it. In here, this might be actually drilled rather than cast, so there's all kinds of reasons why you might want to do it or not do it. And this is where the one of the tools, one of Fredo's tools comes in, round corner. The only thing you got to remember is that it works within the context of the geometry. So if you actually got this grouped like what I had, you have to ungroup it, or actually easiest might just be for me to explode it for a second. All right, so let's go to Tools, Fredo 6. Different versions of this tool, but here's one. So there's the round corner tool. And in principle, what you can do in there is you select edges, and then you give it an offset, you give it a number of segments that you would want this rounding to have, and then you generate geometry. There's a bunch of options in that tool, and I'm not going to go too far into it, but you can already kind of see what's going on. So you can, there we go, start highlighting the geometry. And again, there's also different tools for that, but I'm just going to make it a very fast one. And I'm missing a few of those because ultimately you will want to have this continuous. If you get an error, then typically that has to do with these your rounding causing issues based on the offset. So because it will have to generate geometry in between. In any case, let me just make this as an example. I'm just going to click on Generate Geometry. I'll fill this in, but I do get some edge geometry that rounds this out. So if you want to do something like that, then that's one way to go. But in principle, the tools that I showed you, solid tools basically, and working with positive and negative geometry is a really easy way to get something like this and many other complex geometries modeled in SketchUp. All right, I hope this was useful.